Yes, good morning to you. Now, it is something we don't really like to think about. What happens with our money and our assets when we die? But sometimes people do put plans in place, just like Paula O'Grady from St John's in Worcester. She did that. Paula took out a family protection trust with McClure Solicitors in 2011. Our reporter Emma Davis can explain what that is.
Family protection trusts are often recommended to individuals and families who want to protect their assets from potential future creditors. They are designed to protect the family home from certain creditors, such as care home costs and inheritance tax liability.
Now, when Paula took out the Family Protection Trust, she thought a one-off payment of £2,500 would secure the future of the family home for her disabled son. However, what began as peace of mind for Paula turned out to unexpected fees and sleepless nights when she looked up the Scottish law firm that she'd taken her trust with by chance and discovered that the company went bust in 2021. Trying to resolve the situation wiped out Paula's savings. Our reporter Emma Davis has been to meet her.
My son was living with me and he had developed a severe disability and it looked like he was always going to have to live with me. And so the thought of securing his home and also the fact that I wouldn't have to go through probate, that appealed as well because, of course, my daughter has to deal with all the paperwork. So for both my children, it seemed a really good idea. I was told it would be perfectly straightforward. I thought of it as giving my home away early to my two children, and I was told that you just paid a sum of money up front and from then on all the legal side would be taken care of, and if I needed to go into care or I died, my family would just ring this number and everything would be taken care of. So it just all seemed very simple.
You signed the Family Protection Trust in 2011, but fast forward 13 years to March 2024, and that was when you looked up their website, wasn't it?
Just purely by chance, because I'd had very minimal contact with McClure's, and I just thought, just out of interest, I'll just look up their website, only to discover that they'd gone into administration 3 years before, and Jones White had taken over.
How did you feel at that point?
Absolutely shocked. I had no idea then, what to do other than contacting Jones White.
And when you realised that it had gone into liquidation, what did you think was next for you?
Well, I thought Jones White would just take over, just carry on the trust as it was. Never occurred to me that I'd have to start paying for things all over again. So first of all, they offered me a review for £400. That was only to say what was on my file, not to do any work. And then they sent me through a list of their fees, which was absolutely terrifying because they were huge. And it was obvious I couldn't afford to either dissolve the trust or actually do much with it.
Am I right in thinking that you found out that 3 people were actually named as living at your address?
Well, yes. See, in my mind, I'd really signed my home over to my children. I hadn't really thought what the title deeds would look like. The other thing I did was send away for the title deeds to check. And there were 3 people shown as living at my address. There was no mention of the fact they were solicitors or the house was in trust or anything like that. There were just 3 people who I'd never met living at my address. And of course, 2 can outweigh 1. I was horrified.
And after you'd made this realisation with the deeds, what did you do?
Well, fortunately, having got in touch with this solicitor, she managed everything for me. We managed to dissolve the trust at an amount that I could afford. Cleaned out my savings, but at least I could afford it.
So how much money do you think you've been out of pocket because of all of this?
My initial outlay was £2,500 and it just cost me probably a bit over £1,500 to sort it.
You got some help from a Facebook group, didn't you?
There's a Victims of McClure's Facebook group that had been going, for about 3 years by the time I got to it.
How significant was that Facebook page and making the connections with people in helping you make informed decisions about what to do next?
Probably saved my sanity, to be honest, because, I was absolutely desperate. I really just didn't know which way to turn. I didn't really want to confide in my family too much. I didn't want to worry them.
How have your emotions changed during the course of all of this?
To start with, I was absolutely desperate. But then having got in touch with these other people and having found a good solicitor, I certainly felt very much better about it. And my first thought was to try and get the word out to other people so they found out in time. I'd been lucky because I've still got the means to be able to do things for myself, whereas so many of these other people are in their 80s and 90s. Yes, so I just really wanted to warn people in time for them to sort themselves out if they could.
And would you say that everything is now resolved?
From my point of view, I think it is, but I certainly had many sleepless nights because you think you're doing something for the good of your family and potentially just making their lives absolutely impossible.
That's BBC Hereford and Worcester's Emma Davis talking to Paula O'Grady from St John's in Worcester. Now, McClure's former managing director, Andrew Robertson, declined an interview, but says if it wasn't for COVID, the company would still be trading and their clients would have nothing to worry about. He says all of our cases were taken over by another firm of solicitors, Jones White, who took over almost all of our staff, including me. It was their obligation to advise clients and give them the choice of instructing them or using someone else. This took a while as a result of the volume of clients. The house would be transferred to the trustees. Now, the trustees were selected by the client, but we recommended partners in the firm who were expected to be there until retirement. And the client, this was better than including other relatives of the client, but it was the client's choice. There was no advantage to the firm. I regret more than anyone that we were forced into administration. We can speak now to Jean Newton. She's a solicitor and partner at Quality Solicitors, Parkinson Wright in Worcester, and is here to give us some advice when it comes to managing our assets. Good morning to you, Jean.
Hello, Tammy.
It's a complex one, this. Why might people take out a family protection trust? What are the benefits and what are the drawbacks?
Well, most people were told at the time that the benefits were that it would be safeguarded from the attack from somebody. So particularly they were told about nursing home funding, also that it would save on probate court fees later on. It could also have helped if somebody might attack the estate. So, you got an estranged child or something like that, but that wasn't often mentioned. It was mainly people were told about nursing home funding and probate court fees. But there are an awful lot of disadvantages with them, and they really, the McClures and the other companies that do this have tried to do a one-size-fits-all. And really, it's got to be an individual matter, because you have to look at each individual case to see if it is suitable, and also explain to people in particular all the trust and tax implications, the obligations of trustees, the way trusts work, and make people sure that people understand the whole thing, because it is very complex.
And that's the thing, and that's why, isn't it? We kind of, speak to solicitors because we hope that we will be told all of this information. It will be explained to us in kind of layman's terms, if you like.
And most of the people that I've come across who have dealt with McClure's and these other companies, because they're not the only ones, aren't McClure's, they do not seem to have had it explained to them all about the other implications, particularly all the tax implications and how the trust works later on.
Okay, so that's family protection trust. Are there other ways of protecting our assets if we're worried about the future?
Well, obviously, again, it's all into a case of individual cases. This is the problem. But I mean, a will is very important. It is not necessarily a good idea to try and protect money in the way these have tried to, because it often won't work. Local authorities will challenge these trusts, and so people may think that they've done something that is foolproof, but it's not. So in some cases, it's best to try and protect half of a property rather than try and do a whole property. Also, you have to think nowadays, is it right that you shouldn't have money to pay for care home funding? Because actually having some money enables you to have a choice about which care home to go into and have a better quality of life.
Yeah, that's a good point. What advice would you give if anyone listening to this had a trust with McClure's?
Well, absolutely, it's got to be reviewed, because at the moment, these former partners of McClure's are the ones who hold the purse strings and make all the decisions, and will be looking for more money in the future. So it's extremely important that it's looked at. And people, if they want to move house, they can't just put the house on the market, because they are not the ones who will be signing to sell a property. It will be the McClure's partners, former partners, who are the ones who have to sign to sell a property, and then also deal with the money afterwards and decisions about the trust. So it's absolutely essential that anyone with any of these type of trusts, and I say it's not just McClure's, there are lots of others out there, get some proper advice from somebody who is a specialist.
Lovely. Thank you so much indeed, Jean, for your expertise. Jean Newton there, a solicitor and partner at Quality Solicitors, Parkinson Wright in Worcester. It's a worrying thing, isn't it? Because if you think about it, you create something like this, a family protection trust or whatever, and you just put it away in a drawer. You think, right, that's legal, that's binding, that is very, very straightforward, and we're all protected and sorted. But, there may well be people listening who've done that, and this document's been put away. And actually, if they were to have another look at it and look at the small print, it might not be as plain sailing as you would expect. In fact, we'll be hearing later in the programme, just after 9 o'clock, from Annette, who is one of the administrators of this website that we heard referred to earlier, the Victims of McClure's Solicitors Facebook page. And we'll hear more from her about that situation and what kind of support that page can give in people navigating their way out of these situations that have become very complex. More on that a little later in the programme, right here at BBC Hereford and Worcester. Good morning to you. Welcome along. It's the morning after that Royal Variety performance in London yesterday. It's the morning